We pray with me. Holy God, we've come yet again, expecting, Lord, waiting, Lord, for you to say something to us. Waiting and expecting, Lord, that you have something new to say this day. And so, God, we ask that you would open our eyes to see. Lord, would you open our ears to hear? God, would you open our hearts to know your love? We pray this in your name. Amen. Asher was merely minutes old when we brought Caleb in to meet him for the very first time. We thought it was important that Caleb, his big brother, would get to meet Asher before the rest of our family. That they would have some time to bond, just the two of them. And we time to bond, just the four of us, before the onslaught of anxiously waiting family members piled into our small hospital room. Caleb was excited, and of course insistent on holding his minutes-old little brother. Now, as any of you who have spent time with a newborn know, holding them is a little tricky and can become a bit precarious in a second's time. So we sat Caleb down and we put Asher in his lap. I sat next to him holding Asher's head to support his little neck. And Caleb sat beaming, tremendous joy. I was so very happy, yet so very anxious. Our two-year-old is holding our newborn. What could possibly go wrong? Brilliant idea. That day, more than ever, I used, perhaps overused, the word gentle. Constantly reminding Caleb to be gentle with his little brother. I remind Caleb often, even still, how delicate Asher is. And thankfully, we have yet to experience anything too traumatic. And Caleb has become one of the sweetest and gentlest little boys that I have ever seen. But you know, it seems that when we were born, we ought to have a fragile handle with care sticker just plastered across our forehead. Now, I know that in some environments, the last thing you want is to have this label applied. For example, if you're checking a bag at the airport, it is said that having a fragile sticker is almost a welcoming mat for the JV football team, where it will be thrown often and rarely caught. But if we are to be honest with each other and with ourselves, most of us actually want to be treated gently. Most of us would always prefer a word of encouragement over a word of discontent. And when that word of discontent or critique comes, most of us appreciate it. And even digest it better when it is given in a way that is gentle. In a way where the giver is cautious of the receiver. Every time that I turn on the news recently, I see opportunities, places of invitation to be gentle. Over the last year or so, I've never been more surprised at the way that we have begun to treat one another. I've never heard more anger, more hatred, more mean things said about people to their faces or behind their backs. And I have to say that I've heard this on both sides of the party aisle. Both sides of the Christian divide between conservative and progressive. And yes, even on a couple of occasions, I've even heard it within the walls of this sacred space. I confess to you this day that many times my heart has broken. Now, I'm the first to say that I am incredibly concerned at this juncture in our country and in our world. I'm fearful for the rights of many. I'm angry at certain decisions and baffled by others. And I must note that I'm not merely speaking of the events in the last year, but somehow I am reminded of our need to be gentle with each other. If we as Christians are not leading the way by our example of being people who are loving, being people who, even in great disagreement, take a posture of love and even humility. If we are not being gentle with one another, then who will be? If our actions do not match our desired outcome of what the world ought to look like, then however will we get to our destination? I came across this story about Nelson Mandela, someone who knew all too well what it was to be persecuted, someone who had every right to be full of rage and full of anger and hatred, someone who would go on to spend 27 years of his life in prison, being degraded daily because he spoke out against an oppressive government. That somehow Mandela found the ability to be gentle, to set aside his anger, or better yet, to repurpose his anger for the good of the whole. One individual shared the story of Mandela. During the 1950s, my parents, who were anti-apartheid activists, knew Nelson. I remember the story he told them about the occasion he saw a white woman standing next to her broken-down car in Johannesburg. He approached her and offered to help. After fiddling with the engine, he fixed her car. Thankful for his help, she offered to pay him 6 pence. "Oh no, that's not necessary," he said. "I am only too happy to help." "But why else would you, a black man, have done that if you did not want money?" she asked quizzically. "Because you were stranded on the side of the road," he replied. It would have been so simple for Mandela, whose original name, Roli Lakla, which in Xhosa means troublemaker. It would have been easy and expected that Mandela would have passed by, to have seen that this woman represented the entire system of oppression under which he lived. It would have made sense if he kept going on his way. But instead, he sought to help her. And he did it in a way that was gentle, in a way that quite possibly had a profound impact on the woman with whom he interacted. Be gentle. Our world has enough hatred. Our world has enough places that are broken. Our world can be harsh and cold, but it doesn't have to be this way. If each of us, one by one, took it upon ourselves to be gentle, to be kind, to be gracious to one another, then I suspect that the world would begin to look rather different. Now, being gentle does not mean that we are to sit back idly as the world crumbles. Being gentle does not mean that we become a doormat for everyone to trample. But instead it means that we stand firm in truth, that we stand firm for justice, that we speak and act for what we believe in, but that we do it in a way that is kind and humble, in a way that is constructive, that builds up, in a way that encourages others to join us. In Matthew chapter 12, verse 20, Jesus says, "A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not snuff out, till he leads justice to victory." A bruised reed would have been seen as useless in Jesus' time, just as a smoldering wick to most of us no longer serves a purpose. But to God, everything, everyone is still valued. To some degree, large or small, each of us is bruised. Each of us at one point or another has become like that smoldering wick. We are fragile. We need to be handled delicately and gently. Jesus is well aware of this. I think this is why Jesus, just a few verses before, said to those that had gathered around, "Come to me. Come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Charles Swindoll writes, "In our rough and rugged individualism, we think of gentleness as weakness, being soft and virtually spineless, but not so. Gentleness includes such enviable qualities as having strength under control, being calm and peaceful when surrounded by a heated atmosphere, emitting a soothing effect on those who may be angry or otherwise beside themselves, and possessing tact and gracious courtesy that causes others to retain their self-esteem and dignity. Instead of losing the gentle, they gain. Instead of being ripped off and taken advantage of, they come out ahead." There is this perception that somehow if we are gentle, that we'll be inadequate or ineffective as leaders, as human beings. And that if we are gentle, that no one will pay attention to what it is that we have to say. But I think this is a flawed understanding. And so perhaps we can take a cue from Jesus here. Perhaps too we can strive to be gentle and humble in heart. Perhaps in the midst of great adversity, we too can gather with people of all different walks of life. Those with whom we agree, and maybe even more importantly, those with whom we disagree. Those whom we cannot stand, perhaps we can come together. And in that coming together, may we work for good. May we enter into honest but gentle dialogue with each other. Gentleness means recognizing that the world around us is fragile, especially other people. It is recognizing our own capacity to do harm and choosing instead to be tender, soft-spoken, soft-hearted, and careful. When we are gentle, we touch the world in ways that protect and preserve it. When we are gentle, we are ever mindful that friend or foe, each of us has been made in the image of God, whether we like it or not. Jesus has compassion for you and for me. And so too we ought to live compassionately for others. Jesus is gentle with us. So too we must be gentle with one another. Friends, this is what our faith calls us to. This is who our God has created and called us to be. This is not always easy, but it is what God has called us to, and thus we are called to live this way. You pray with me. Holy God, our world needs gentleness. So, Lord, we pray that when there are times when we are filled with anger, that, Lord, that anger would be shared, carried out in a way that is gentle. Lord, when we find ourselves in conversations that are tense, when somebody wrongs us, Lord, would you help us to have a word that is gentle? Lord, for you have treated us gently. And so, God, if we are to be called imitators of you, help us to be gentle in all that we do. And all that we say. Lord, help us to be a bit